Hello everyone, greetings for the day. My name is Sudeshna and I work for CTPD Asia, which is a branch of Asian College of Teachers. Today we are going to talk about effective feedback and how a feedback is necessary for any performer, and as a facilitator, what are the things that we should be doing in order to ensure that the feedback is being followed, is effective, and at the same time an enjoyable process. So talking about feedback, the process of going ahead and developing a feedback is to ensure that you are helping a performer with their performance and not to put a damper on it, isn't it? Hence, a negative feedback is something that a facilitator shouldn't be starting off with when they are providing a feedback. Also, the term feedback kind of creates a threat in the minds of the learners when, as a facilitator, you say that I'm going to provide you a feedback. So let's discuss here, is the feedback always a negative feedback that we are looking forward to, or is it something positive that we can look forward to as well? Because providing feedback is one of the necessary, I would say, areas that a facilitator always works on, and we have to ensure that we talk about the areas of improvement, but at the same time, how can we support that with a positive attitude that the performer has shown in the areas of their job. So let's move forward in discussing about what is a good feedback. So when we talk about a feedback, it is also about a discussion of the various practices that is being followed in a typical classroom or any training session, right? Now, talking about feedback, a good feedback is something which promotes a healthy environment, which definitely supports a learner to do better, talks about something that we are good at, but what are the various ways that we can make it better. So when we are talking about a good feedback, it means that we are not using words which are particularly negative. So going forward, we will also share some examples in how to know that you're using a word which is not negatively affecting a performer. At the same time, a feedback should be something which is a little descriptive, which is targeted to the areas that the performer is supposed to perform. At the same time, when we talk about a good feedback, the facilitator should provide it in a timely fashion, should be a little professional, should be sorted, worked out, and should be channeled in a way where both the performer and the facilitator are sharing good humor, maybe if required. At the same time, talking about good feedback means what's my next step of improvement. So it should be very clear in the discussion, and the performer should know what is it that can help me to perform better, or what else should I do so that I kind of stand out and I'm also happy at the end of the day. So moving forward, let's share some tips with you in understanding how do you provide an effective positive feedback. I'm going to share some examples with you, alright? And as a facilitator, as a leader, as a guide, or as a manager, you can surely go ahead and use some of these tips to ensure that you're providing a good, favorable, positive feedback to your performers. Ensure that when you're providing a feedback, you are being a little affirmative, but at the same time, information is gathered prior hand so that you are also prepared as a facilitator. You have done your homework to ensure that when you're coming into a discussion, you do not have vague information with you, or you're not sure about what you're going to speak during the discussion. If required, there will be situations where you may have to correct yourself and you may have to put a little emphasis on a bit of explanation, because you could be having a mixed group of performers, isn't it? And probably you would have some newcomers in the team who would need a little bit of explanation from your end to ensure that you're helping them to behave in a certain way maybe. Give genuine praise. Now that's really, really required. Timely acknowledgements, appropriate acknowledgements, praising somebody in the team for doing a job well, okay, or somebody who has been trying, somebody who has shown some amount of improvement in their performance, do not forget to praise that individual. It's required, and you really do not have to wait for a formal feedback session to go ahead and praise that individual. At the same time, being facilitators, we have to ensure that we are being sensitive to a certain situation. Now, there could be participants or performers in your team. If you've seen or noticed or observed over a certain point of time, there could be personal issues which is hampering the performance of a performer. Now, sometimes there could be skill issues and sometimes there are will issues. So ensure that as a manager, how are you going to deal with those professionally? Because sometimes being too sensitive or being too sympathetic may not help, but are you being empathetic when you're providing a feedback? Feedback can also be a self-feedback or a peer feedback. It's not necessary that we always have to start, or we always have to be the first person to share our observations. It can always be done the other way around. I mean, you can always ask the performers or the team members, how are they feeling about their performance? Or is there anything that they feel could be improved to ensure that we are providing a better working environment? As facilitators, I think we should be very open to those feedback as well. We can also look for something called a peer feedback. Now, a peer feedback also should be something which is a little professional, and there has to be an environment created by the facilitator, because remember, at the end of the day, you are the captain of the ship, wherein you're creating an environment where peers are happy to share their observations, share their feedback, and I think that also adds to an effective feedback. Some more examples if I can think about: have a clear model ready, and a feedback is always effective if it is written in black and white. Alright, so in case if you are providing a feedback, ensure that towards the end of it you have it written. It could be something which you are providing to the performer right away, and there's an acknowledgement from both of you, or there could be an email that goes to the performer and a quick acknowledgement of the discussions that you had. I think that also makes it pretty formal. And concentrate on providing a feedback, ensuring the value of time of that individual as well. Now, that's very important, and we must remember that we only provide a feedback if we are looking for a positive improvement. A feedback is always to improve an individual, not to pull them down. Keeping that in mind, we can also think about creating a performance improvement plan, or a PIP, as you may have heard of it. Now, a performance improvement plan basically is a periodic plan or a written information of the discussions that you may have had with that individual. It also shows periodic development or an area of opportunity that still exists, which you think the person still needs to develop on. And like I said, do not forget to praise an individual and timely acknowledgements if you see the person has really improved. That PIP documentation can also be referred to during your appraisals. And I think that really helps an individual to acknowledge and understand if something has been periodically checked. It will definitely make me feel as an individual that I am at the best place and at the right place to work. So going forward, let's ensure that we are asking these 4 questions to ourselves, okay, when we are preparing a feedback format. The first question can be, what can the performer do in a given situation? Which means that, is the performer clear about the KRA or key responsibility areas? So if that's clear, then the performer surely knows what is expected out of them. The second question could be, what is it that you are telling a performer to do that they cannot do? Because this kind of creates a stress, and I'm sure if a performer is not sure about what they are supposed to do or perform in an organization, then it creates confusion, and it also hits the confidence of the performer. The third question that you could be asking yourself when you're preparing a situation like this is, if you're going ahead and giving a feedback to a performer, how is that compared to the other members in the team? that's required, because if you are looking for a comparison, that's when you will have clear questions in your mind. Is this person a new joinee? Because then it is not fair to compare the performance of this new joinee with the people who are in the team maybe for years. And the fourth question that kind of comes to your mind when you are planning a good feedback for a performer is, how can the performer's performance be better? Okay, so have that clear thought in your mind as a facilitator, that what can I suggest to this performer that can help him or her to behave in a better way or perform in a better way. That's a very constructive feedback. So keep these 4 questions in mind, and this will also help you to know the individual in your team or in your organization better, isn't it? You are creating a situation where there's open communication. The performer feels free to talk to you about any pros and cons, and I think that helps both the individuals to finally reach the goal of the organization. So talking about a constructive and positive feedback, let's look at some constructive feedback sentences that you could be using as a facilitator to ensure that your performer goes happy when they are moving out of the room. So some constructive feedback sentences could be, your work displays, going ahead, sentences like, you should be very proud of what you're doing. Sentences like, next time it will be great if you can. To ensure that you are changing a can't to a can be, I really can't do this. Instead of saying that, it can be, I think I'm trying my best, but I can do better. Sentences like, this is really not what I'm meant for. I don't think I will be able to perform. Instead of saying this, it can be, I know I'm new to this, and this is something new for me, but there's no harm in learning, and there's no harm in trying. So I think I will try and give it my best. Some other constructive sentences could be, I think you've done a phenomenal job. Fantastic, I'm so proud of you. Or, I know you've come a long way. You're really giving your best, I can see that. It's all right. Everybody has a first time, but I'm sure you can do better with time. Some very, very constructive feedback, sentences that you can use to ensure that you're boosting the morale of the individual, the performer, and they build that trust in you, right? So slowly from just being a team leader or a manager or a facilitator, you become a coach. And then gradually you become a mentor to this individual. And nothing like seeing those smiling faces, when they come back to you and they ask you, well, I remember you said this to me in the last meeting. And I really took it seriously and I've been working towards it. How do you think I'm performing now? I think that can be a great sentence to start off any feedback meeting, isn't it? So lastly, keeping all the above factors and whatever we have been discussing till now, let's kind of conclude this discussion by saying that it is important to understand some of the guiding principles of a positive feedback. If I talk about the principles, keep these certain points in mind. First, it's very important that your participant or the performer should know that why is this performer being called for a meeting. So if it is a feedback, it's okay to let the performer know a few days maybe or a day ahead that there's going to be a discussion and then you're going to talk about the performances. So in that case, the performer is also ready or your team member is ready, and it does not come as a surprise to the individual that what are you going to talk about. So this awareness of the purpose of the meeting is required. Ensure that you are having a good environment for the meeting. Alright, because not many would like to have open discussions when other team members are there around. So when you are providing a feedback, it's a good idea that you set up the right environment. So a room, the timing, and ensure that the duration is also kind of kept in mind, because it's okay to prepare your performer about a duration, that we are meeting for the next half an hour, or I have a 10-minute meeting for you and we would like to talk about the performance so far. Reinforce the positive behaviors that's required, and like I said, when I talk about acknowledging or ensuring that you are praising the work well done, do not really wait for a formal meeting. I mean, that can be done every day. Have small team hurdles in the beginning of the day if required. And you can always, in that 10 minutes team hurdle, talk about the performances so far and what is expected for that day. I think this kind of open communication will really help both the manager, the leader, or the facilitator to ensure that your performers are aware of what's being expected. So if this is being done kind of on a daily basis, it's more clear to them what's being expected, and ensure that the aim and the purpose of the feedback is being met at the end of the meeting. So you can always end the meeting with a good note. You can always start the meeting with asking the performer how they think their performance was so far. Cushion it with a good praise, and then definitely you have to talk about the areas of opportunities. I personally hate to call it a positive and a negative feedback, so I kind of always say what are the areas of opportunities, and then you can always end it with what's being expected. So I think if keeping these pointers in mind, if we go ahead and prepare ourselves also when we are going to give a feedback to an individual, I think that makes the feedback, the whole process, really enjoyable, at the same time constructive, because it is required that a feedback is provided to an individual for better performance. If not, think about it. Do we really need to have a feedback process? So with that, we come to an end to our quick discussion today. I hope you have liked the video, and if you've really liked it, do like, share and comment. And we look forward to seeing you with much more videos and topics as such, which can definitely help you in being better leaders.